all the Catholic priests I ever knew never wanted for anything. Drove Cadillacs, had houses. One priest had a hot tub, So the only thing they have to do is Mass every day.
Yeah.
And 3 on Sunday.
Yeah.
And
the hot tub in between.
And with a tub, and they can't fuck. That's it.
Yeah.
They can't make their own money, but they live off the parish.
Yeah.
And I guess the parish in turn lives off the church to some degree. Whatever. He was not hurting for money.
Yeah.
No priest I've ever known is ever hurting for money. The sisters, the ones that I was very familiar with, the ones that taught me from age 8 to 13, they don't get shit. Nothing. Like, just, they barely had a car, but they were always rejecting it too. It wasn't like you can't have it. They were like, that's not part of our vows. Chastity, poverty, and something else. But at least when you're a priest, man, like priests got it. Like, priests have to jerk off. They have to. Priests are allowed to sin. But you would hope that the sins were minor, like, every once in a while he tugs one out.
Yeah.
Not fucking major and horrible and evil, like every once in a while he touches a child, jerks off on some kid's head. Or something like that, where you're like, come on, dude. And it's the biggest fucking violation of trust there is, man. Like, could you imagine being a kid? Like, when all the priest touching kids stuff came out, it started coming out, I really sat down. I was like, all right, man, I did 8 years of Catholic school. I was an altar boy. Was there ever anything remotely untoward? Yeah. And I came to the conclusion that I just wasn't fuckable as a child. Because no priest ever made a pass at me. And I never heard of any priest doing anything in my parish, doing anything untoward with any kids. Didn't mean it, didn't go on. It just, I feel it didn't go on in my parish, but of course it obviously went on in the world. But removing that, you can't even call that a sin. That's a fucking pedophile. That's a dude breaking the law, just wrong, evil, and bad. But remove that. Like, a priest who's just like, look, I want to be a good priest. I ain't interested in fucking kids. I'm not gay. I just want to give up, give my life to God. They got to jerk off, don't they?
I mean,
I'm married, and if a couple days go by and I'm not fucking my wife, I'm jerking off in the bathroom, and I got pussy on demand, kind of. Not like I can't be like, do it and throw it on the table. It should be like, you're out of your mind. But I have access. You got to deal with that. You got to hear confessions and shit, potentially horrible things that people say to you in the confessional.
Yeah,
I'm sure most people confess shit like, I fucking cheated or stole or fucking had impure thoughts. But you could have somebody in who's just like,
stabbed a drifter.
Yeah, and fucking just to watch him bleed. And then I put my balls in his mouth as he died. What should I do, Father? How many Our Fathers should I say? How many Hail Marys does that get me? And, I think in that instance, a priest is encouraged. A priest is supposed to encourage them to be like, look, you have to confess. But a priest can't turn you in.
No.
I mean, I guess he could, but it kind of goes against your lawyer. If you were the guy who killed the drifter and dropped your nuts in his mouth, you would have a hell of a fucking defense, because you'd be like, look, that was
said in confession.
Totally. You can't hold that against me. He can't fucking turn me in for something that's you can't. I won't hold up in court. They'd have to find other evidence and shit. There's a lot on your mind as a priest, I imagine. Now, today, in the 21st century, you got to deal with everybody being like, oh, you fucking touching little boys and shit. And you're like, I'm not that priest, man. Not every priest is that priest. Yes, there are definitely some. And yes, this organization has not been very good at weeding them out and getting them out. We hide them. Traditionally, they've hid them in the past to keep it quiet.
Yeah.
But, they're not very good at it. And now we're trying to get better. And you always have to include yourself in that organization. If you're a member of the cloth, you've got to be like, well, it's all them. It ain't me. You got to be like,
Rome's fucked up.
Totally. If you're a Catholic priest, you got to stand up for Catholicism. So you're not standing up for like boy touching or little girl touching, but it's mostly boy touching, which I find very strange. But you can't, be like, the church is wrong, and I'm fucking mad at the church because then you catch shit from your boss because it's still a job. And then if let's say let's say I was that priest. Let's say I was a parish priest. I took over Our Lady Perpetual Help at Highlands.
Yeah.
And
do you keep the hot tub?
Definitely, hands down. I'm not only am I keeping the hot tub, but I have a nightly ornate masturbatory ritual in the hot tub. Because who could deal with all that non-sex and nonsense in your daily life?
A priest.
But if I was that guy, I don't think they do. That's my point.
But I would argue that there has to be people who have...
you think there's a priest somewhere in the history of the Catholic Church who never jerked off?
Sure.
I don't buy that. Not for a second. I think everybody jerks off.
Well,
some priests are priests for like 60 years, dude. You think they never
here's
fucking
my contention is
touched
like,
the dingle?
Did they do it, and then once they became a priest, they stopped doing it?
I'm saying they did it while they were not like wearing the collar. Like, I'm going to jerk off wearing this collar. It's going to be hot. But while they were a priest, during their tenure as priests, when they were ordained, men.
I mean, it would never occur to me, but, there's all kinds of people. There's fucking billions of people that one guy is just like, I can keep my hand off of it.
No way. I don't believe anybody can keep their hands off of it for very long. I don't care who you are, man. I won't go so far as to say Jesus probably jerked off, but maybe.
They have to, but there has to be the guys who, started off, trying to adhere, because they're not all, sitting there getting, water put on them or whatever they do when they become a priest, getting poked, and then being like...
I want you to poke me hard.
But, I mean, they're not sitting there going yeah, and I won't jerk off.
I think it's an unspoken thing. I don't think if they wrote that into the literature, as you're taking your vows, if they were and then you got a vow number 5 is you got to say you will never jerk off again, because chastity is real loose. You know what I'm saying? Chastity is I won't couple up, but it's not I won't couple up with my with Mary Thumb and her 5 sisters.
But it would still fall under impure thoughts, because nobody jerks off thinking about thoughts. A banana.
I mean, preferably you don't. You're not supposed to, because it's a sin. You're not supposed to sin, but we're human beings, so of course we sin. But it's allowed. It's not you can't have impure thoughts, because that's part of the human condition. I'm sure every priest has been handing out communion, and I mean now they mostly put it in your hands, which I think is strange. Yeah. Back in the day, they put it right on your tongue. There ain't no fucking way that you can tell me there's any priest in the world, except maybe a dude who was gay who became a priest because his family was you got to become a priest, and he's like, I like cock, and they're like, get in there, and then they made him a priest and shit. But so he likes guys, but there ain't no way a heterosexual priest is given communion, laying that wafer on some broad's tongue, a good-looking broad, and not going I'd like to lay something on that tongue.
I think if you
never mind the body of Christ, how about the body of me, Father Pete?
Fucking, I got a hot tub.
That really captured your imagination.
It is. It's I mean, I'm sure you would argue it's for therapeutic value, but it just seems like such a frivolous thing.
But that's the thing. A Catholic priest can get away with that. Because
which to me would be problematic, where I'm if I was handing over tithes and I didn't have a hot tub, I'd be like, fuck you, bitch.
Yeah, but most of those people don't.
You don't
most
get a
of those
hot
people,
tub.
We're talking about an older generation, probably current generation. Yes, you're right. If you were suddenly flip and become a Catholic and shit, I'm sure you would take umbrage with a few of the church policies. But old school, my parents, or even before that, my grandparents, man, they had no problem tithing 15% and seeing the priest drive a nicer car than them, because that's the father. That's father. He deserves that.
Yeah. But a hot tub?
Even that. Well, I don't know. I wonder how my grandmother would react to that. If
a hot tub seems
the father has a hot tub.
Father Pete.
You have to put the father in front of it.
It's a nice one too.
It's really nice. But I think my grandmother would have been like, "What's a hot tub?" And then if I explained it to her, she'd have made excuses for him, well, maybe he's got a bad back, or maybe, but ultimately she would always come down on the father deserves that, because that's father.
It's probably holy water.
Totally. Maybe it's for baptism or something like that. But she would never, I never had the relationship with my grandmother where she'd be like, look, the dude doesn't get to fuck. Let him have a hot tub. But that's what would be unspoken when she said, well, that's the father. That's what she was kind of saying. Cut him some fucking slack.
Yeah, but cutting a guy slack who makes a choice, to me, is like, well, if you want to fuck, then fuck. If you don't want to fuck, you don't get a reward for it.
But he does. But presumably they do want to fuck, but that's the sacrifice they're making.
But that's their sacrifice,
dedicate their lives
so they don't
to God.
get a reward.
Well,
like, you don't get a reward for obeying the law.
No, but that's the law.
I know, but essentially, like, you don't get a reward by choosing. You can break the law. You can fucking do whatever you want, but you choose not to break the law. You don't get a reward for it.
Well, look, I break the law all the time, and I'm rewarded for it. For example, I will run a yellow light that's, like, more yellow than green.
Uh-huh.
And my reward is I'm getting someplace a little sooner. Yeah.
Well, but you don't get, I mean, essentially, you don't get a hot tub.